time is of the essence. Then the missing person cases, the longer it takes, the harder it's going to be to find them.
We bring people who are doing God's work. That's what I call it. You can call it the universe, you can call it nature, whatever you want to call it, but I call it God's work because this is the goodness in our humanity.
I pray for the victims that I've helped in the past. I pray for the victims that I'm currently helping now. And just as important, I pray for the victims that are coming in the future. We all have a gift in ourselves, and I believe that. Sometimes our gifts are wrapped up with more tape than others, but it's up to us to find someone to help us unwrap our gift so that we could use it to be a blessing to others.
The thing people need to understand is that nobody expects you to get involved and be a superhero. People expect you to get involved, bring your best, and I think the collective of people who are bringing their best creates a superhero effect. Welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues. I'm your host, Ali Horiad. My goal in this program is to educate our audience about various global issues and on how we can help. Today, we have Moses Castillo to speak about his detective work in helping families find their missing loved ones and how you, I, and everybody can help these families. Moses, we all know it's not easy to have your career. You see horrific things while helping families find their loved ones around the world, in the US, everywhere. And the sad part is from all ages too. It really hurts me when kids are involved. It's really tough to kind of digest that part of it for me personally. I know every human's a human, but it's just a little harder for me with kids. Let's start with this, a little bit of background and why you chose to become a detective and a private detective. And so we can kind of understand how somebody gets into this field.
Well, thank you, Ali. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. So my name is Moses Castillo. I actually was born and raised in East Los Angeles by a single parent. And the reason I bring that up, because I believe at a very young age, around 7, 8 years old, I had an encounter with the local law enforcement, which happened to be the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. There was this deputy who would patrol our area, and every time I see him, he was driving around in his black and white, and I would always see him drive around constantly. And lo and behold, one day our car was stolen from inside our garage. So when we called the police, who shows up? This deputy sheriff that I've been watching patrol our streets for many days and weeks, whatever case may be. And I was like in awe when I saw him in person. He was tall. He was buff. He was solid, and he had his hair combed to the side, and he started interacting. And I was interpreting for my mom because she was Spanish speaking, and this guy looked like the Clark Kent in a deputy uniform, so like the Superman. I go, wow, this guy looks awesome. So he took our report, and a few days later, we get a phone call in the middle of the night. Again, I'm a little kid, right? And it's the deputy sheriff announcing that they made an arrest and they have our car, and they wanted me to ask my mom, did you give so and so permission to drive the car? She goes, no, I don't know who that is. So then I realized, oh my gosh, this Superman deputy not only found our car, but he arrested the bad guy. And man, I want to do that. That felt really cool. That was my perception. Obviously, it wasn't the same deputy, but anyway, as a young kid, this deputy left a lasting impression in me. And then that's where the seed was planted to become a police officer. And so I grew up, and so I had a choice, to either join a gang or obey my mom and follow my mom. And thankfully, she raised me well, and I grew up to be a Los Angeles police officer. I started as a reserve police officer in October of 1989. I went full time in November of 91. I was Chief Gates' last graduating class. And so it was a 30 plus year career, and I promoted to the rank of detective within 7 years of being on the department. And I was working sex crimes ever since, and then child abuse cases of physical abuse, sex abuse, and murder of children. And as you can imagine, I've seen the worst and the worst. And I did that for many, many years. And I ended up my career in 2 years of Central Traffic Division, where we investigated all the fatal traffic collisions, the hit and runs, all the serious. So I've seen a lot in my career. And when I retired from LAPD in 2020, I retired so I could come work for this law firm where I'm in my office now at this law firm in Glendale. It's known as the Dordulian Law Group. And so what we do here is it's a personal injury law firm. We do the traditional car crashes with injuries, dog bites, wrongful death, slip and fall, you name it. But we specialize also on sex abuse and sexual assault cases. So with my expertise with that, and my boss is a former prosecutor, and that's how he and I met. He was a sex crimes prosecutor. I was a sex crimes detective. Together, when we were on the law enforcement side, we prosecuted many people, and now we're adding our expertise and our passion on the civil side. And so now it's a different animal altogether, but it's the very similar in the way we approach this, because it's just really sad that these victims continue to be victimized, and here we are. And as an added bonus, if you will, I started to develop a social media presence, and I also have a good working relationship with all the local media outlets in Los Angeles, local and national. And because of that, people have been noticing me. And as you mentioned, I do help people find their missing loved ones. And it all started a few years ago when somebody asked me for some help. So I used social media to help find their daughter. It was a girl who was missing from Miami here in Los Angeles. We found her, long story short, and then that was the beginning of people noticed that on social media. And then I got another phone call, hey, can you help me? And another phone call, hey, can you help me find my daughter? Can you help me find my son? And sometimes we find them, and sometimes we don't.
And you know what? That's one part of social media I love. I mean, using the tech and the tools that we have today, that in your career, I mean, you've been a detective for the span of really seeing no tech involved in your work to a lot of tech involved. I mean, in the first days when you
Yeah,
started out, it was even hard to have a phone call with somebody because you'd have to go to the station or public phone or something. So there was no cell phones then.
sure.
And now all of a sudden you're in a place where through social media, like you say, you can really reach the whole country and put out a strong campaign and do some proper work. So it's amazing. I love seeing people use tech in the ways that it's meant to be, but unfortunately, on the flip side of the coin that you're in, is using social media for the problems that you're trying to solve, right? And that's one of the issues. Now, you take on a lot of like you said, missing cases, and using social media and all that. What is, for our viewers to kind of get an understanding of the work you do and the effect of it, what is the percentage of the people you find, or the happy endings to the stories?
Well, I can tell you that for the majority of the cases that I do get involved with, we do find them and they are reunited with their family. And some few cases, they ended up dead, and it's a very unfortunate. One of my very first cases as well was a elderly person who who was able to manage to get away from a nursing home, and unbeknownst to us, 4 days from being released or went unaccounted for in this nursing facility, unbeknownst to the family, he had died 4 days later by being struck on a freeway. He ended up somewhere kind of far away from where he left, and he got struck. But he remained as a unidentified John Doe for many months, maybe almost a year, until the family decided to submit their DNA profile to the coroner's office to see if they could find any unidentified John Does and connect the dots through the use of DNA analysis. And that's how they were able to say, yeah, we connected you to this John Doe who had been dead almost a year, and at least it brought a resolution to the family. It
Yes,
wasn't the
closure.
outcome they were looking for, what they wanted, but it did bring a resolution. If you notice, I'm not using the word closure because there's no such thing as closure when a family loses a loved one, especially in something like this scenario where they were hoping to find their dad, and he suffered from dementia and it was hard. But man, we blasted this story on the news, on social media, and we tried, but unfortunately, he died. So in that case, that's one example how we found him, but he was dead. Another one, it was a 19-year-old young man who left, and we knew he left despondent, and we tried to find him, and we found him a few weeks later, but it was his deceased body. He had apparently committed suicide, is the official ruling. The family disputes that, but nonetheless, that was the official ruling. And again, using social media and some of the news outlets to report it, to try to find him. And unfortunately, in that case, that was not the case. And to this day, there are some ones that are still missing. For example, um, right here, I have as a constant reminder that Ruthie Smith. Ruthie Smith was a beautiful 19-year-old female who has been missing now for 2 years. 2 years, March, the first week of March marked her second year anniversary, and she was a confirmed victim of human trafficking. She got lured into that life of crime at the young age of 16, and sometimes once you're there, it's a hard grip, and these pimps, they have a strong hold on you, and then it's hard for you to break away. And we believe she did try to break away, and that's why now she's missing. And we are fearing the worst, but we're still keeping our hope up, because in this particular case, the family did submit their DNA as well to the coroner's office to see if their family profile will be linked to Ruthie Smith's body somewhere if she ends up dead somewhere. And to this day, they have not made any hits or any positive hits to link them. So that's the only glimmer of hope that we have, is that she's somewhere out there, maybe being held against her will, and we're trying to solve that. So yeah, sometimes we find them, sometimes we don't. And then the one other high-profile case that I'm helping the family with involves Maria del Carmen Lopez, and she's a U.S. citizen with Mexican citizenship as well. So she has dual citizenship. While in the state and city of Colima, Mexico, she was kidnapped, a confirmed kidnap by some folks out there in Mexico, and a ransom was made to the family here in the United States, and that has involved the FBI and the local authorities and the federal authorities in Mexico. And to this day, now this is a year plus. It was a year in February 9th that the anniversary happened, and so again, no word. But again, using social media, using our contacts with the media. Here we needed international help, so we are getting some publicity in Mexico as well, and throughout California. And what's bringing some hope to this family is that there was another case where this lady was from Northern California. She had been missing for 9 months, and then somehow she was reunited with her family. And so that news gave Maria del Carmen's family hope that maybe we'll get the same outcome, and these captors will have a change of heart, and
Yes.
allow her to come home. So that's what we're hoping for. So those are just some examples of some of the
Right.
cases. And yeah,
And,
it's
and
really,
and one
really
of the cases you spoke about, we're actually involved in. Compassiviste Foundation. Zoe, basically Maria's daughter. We're campaigning, fundraising the efforts for her, with her. She's a friend. She's
yes.
also a friend, close friend of our producer, and we're putting everything we can into it. And it upsets me that a lot of the reasons why these cases don't move forward is because of the bureaucracy and the lack of the funding in the places that also create red tape, in a sense, because there is not enough funding to do these things. And you being a former police officer, you must be very well aware that if you had an extra $1 million to do this and that, as your department or whatever, there would be so much more advances that you could do. And it's sad to see that people's lives, children's lives, women's lives, and all of the stuff that you mentioned, like the other case, you're dealing with, they really come down to a matter of having a little more funding and ability to deal with these things. And I think we should, right? That would help so much.
Well, yeah, obviously, money does help because if you had money and resources to have enough money to maybe even, like, for instance, offer a reward to give somebody the incentive to provide information that, to return their loved one back to them safely, that might be a motivation. But yeah, also, people, sometimes people don't know how to navigate through the system, and how to communicate with law enforcement, and how to be
Right.
persistent, and how to tell them that this is not, uh, the it's not like, our loved one to do this. It's out of character for them to do this.
Right.
Like in Ruthie Smith's case, obviously, the initial response we got from law enforcement is like, it's just another case, another number.
Hmm.
She's in that lifestyle, she's in that
Right.
human
Yeah.
trafficking world, and so maybe didn't. But the parents are saying no. She has a beautiful little girl that she would never leave or abandon. That's what we know. She wouldn't. I mean, who throws a birthday party for a 6 month anniversary of their baby? No, typically people wait for the first year and throw a 1 year anniversary of the first year, birthday. But she celebrated the 6 month, and she threw a big party for that, and she was getting ready to celebrate the next milestone in her baby, and then she just vanishes. So yeah, so it took some. It was like pulling teeth, and trying to get police to do something, and uh, and that's unfortunate. So that's why sometimes to have somebody like myself to advocate for them and help them navigate, and here we are. So
Right.
it's tough. So that's why I
A-
tell people: do not give up on your
Right.
family member. Be persistent. Be tenacious, and tell the detectives to meet with you and give you updates, and then you provide them information, and see if you could use the media. Ask for a press conference, or at the very least a press release, so that the media will cover it, because sometimes the media does take the lead from law enforcement. If law enforcement calls for a press conference, guess what? They will show up.
Mm.
If a family calls for a press conference, they may or may not. And that's another thing that I've been able to do because of my work in the local media. A lot of the local media outlets, they know who I am. They know that
Right. Right.
my heart's in the right place, and if I'm bringing a case to them, more than likely they will come and cover it, because there's some legit there's some legitimate reasons for it.
So you brought up something really. You said something really that is important. I think here is a lot of people actually don't know, and there is no education. We go to school, we never get educated about life issues, and I bring this up in different fields as well when I have these conversations. There are things we never learn in school and we never learn at home. So one of the things we never learn is, if your mom, your sister, your brother, somebody doesn't come home, what do you do, right? And the most we know how to do is call 911 and follow the lead. They may say, come fill out some paperwork, or you got to wait a certain time, or we just follow the lead. We're not very proactive because we don't know to be proactive, right? We don't know that, yes, call the police, but at the same time, maybe find a Moses or somebody that can help you, right? Or maybe do this and that. So I think I would love it if you could take, a couple of minutes and tell our audience, if they ever are in a situation where someone's missing, or there's there's reason to contact the police or follow up on something, or even if it's their friends or somebody they know or a neighbor down the street. A lot of the communities, unfortunately, that these things happen in are communities of minorities who are family oriented. You come from the Latin background, and you know this better than I do. Your community is very connected. I mean, on one street, normally everybody knows everybody. When somebody's crying over a missing child in one house, all the houses know what's going on. Somebody should get involved, and somebody should take that proactive action. What do I do when I find out someone's missing somewhere, whether a loved one or a neighbor?
Well, thank you for that question. It's very important, and I want to just dispel a myth. There's a myth out there that says that you must wait 24 hours before you make any
See,
attempt to
that's what I
report somebody
believe
missing.
because we watch movies
Yeah,
and that's what they tell us,
yeah,
and we kind of go by it, right? I would never know that. I
yeah.
would say, oh, I gotta wait until tomorrow morning to make sure my son, my daughter, whoever comes home. I don't know
Yeah.
if they're missing for
Yes,
2 hours that I have the choice.
right, and especially if it's a young child. If it's a young child, definitely under the age of 10 or 11, you got to report it right away, and the police will jump on that right away. They will treat that as a critical missing, and uh, you know do all hands on deck search for a child. But let's just say a teenager or a young adult, as soon as you feel that the person is missing, you can go to the local police department and report them missing. And sometimes it's family. The person may be missing from, let's say, Los Angeles, but the family lives somewhere, back east. So technically speaking, you can go to your local police department, and I'll use this hypothetical that I'm talking about. If you live in New York, but your loved one is missing from Los Angeles, you can go to the NYPD and say, I'd like to report my loved one missing that's in Los Angeles, and they are obligated to take the report. They may give you some pushback and say you need to report it to the Los Angeles Police Department. So then you have to navigate through the internet and find the local LAPD station and report that telephonically to the police. And when you do so, you also want to send them the most recent picture and the circumstances. They're going to ask you questions like, give me a little background as to why you think this person's missing. What is the mental state of the individual? Does the person have any history of mental illness? Is there any suicidal ideologies or thoughts? And they go along these questions, and then the officer, when they are taking this missing persons report, within the report itself, there is this checklist, if you will, a checkbox for every phone number that they have to call to see. Hey, they'll check hospitals, they'll check the county coroner's office, and they'll check with our mental health system. And it's a checkbox just to see, because if he's making one of these calls, they say, oh yeah, the person is I'm missing. This person's right here. And unfortunately, if it's the coroner, they'll tell you, oh yeah, we do have a body that matches the description. Or mental health, oh yeah, we have the person, but because of HIPAA, we can't tell you more than that. But the person is in our facility. And then we'll see if we could ask that individual to reach out to their family. And so, they work it that way. So, and to highlight a case, I had a recent case recently where a mom and dad reached out to me on social media because their daughter had been missing for about 15 months. And that she was 20 years old, an adult, and it looks like she wasn't sure. They weren't sure if she went missing voluntarily or did something happen. They were not sure. They hired a private eye, and the private eye found a potential address, but didn't find the missing person. And then they turned to me, and I told them, well, why don't you come to Los Angeles? Let's go to LAPD local station. Let's report her missing. And then the officer was very smart and very in tune to the line of question, and he couldn't develop the nexus to why LAPD should take a missing person, because we can't confirm she was missing from Los Angeles. We could potentially confirm that she was missing from the Riverside area. And so, but the officer, you know what? Because I told him there's an address where she may be. And then so the officer took the initiative. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to dispatch a patrol officer to go out to this address to see if she's there and see if she's well. Long story short, they did. They went, they found her. She was fine, unharmed. She claimed to be okay, but she elected to not reunite with her family and not to contact her family, and that was her right. So although the family, number one, wasn't the outcome they wanted,
Right.
but at least it was again a resolution.
Yes.
It was an answer to the unknowns, and hopefully now the daughter knows. Okay, my parents. I'm not sure what the issue was or the backstory is, but whatever the case may be, now this daughter knows. Okay, you know what? My parents did come looking for me, did find me, and I'm hoping that effort
Right.
may one time allow her an opportunity to reach out to them and begin the healing process, whatever that may look like.
It may be the
But at the
catalyst
very
for that.
least, it brought some outcome. So that's an example of, coming to the police, being tenacious, and also in this case, the police, man, I actually wrote him accommodation and I talked to his supervisor and his captain, because he took that initiative, and many officers wouldn't do that. But then again, it also saved a lot of resources in the future, because then this case would have gone. Let me follow this story. So if this case had that welfare check that they went out to didn't result in anything, then the officer would have taken a missing persons report, entered into the system, our national system, then it would have get that report would have gone to a detective from the missing persons unit, and then they would investigate it. And that's where the family needs to learn who that investigator is, communicate with them, and let them know the history, the background that allows them to do their thing to help to find them. So yeah, that's one example of many. But
Right.
again, sometimes it doesn't work as easy as this one did.
Unfortunately. Now, I want to ask you a two-part question. First, I've been involved a little bit, like with Zoe's case, with other friends of mine, who've had brushes with kidnapping, or have gone through it as well. And so the thing is, sometimes, as you're doing research, as you're reading and stuff, you come across stats that blow your mind. I read in the United States there are 3,000 people that go missing a day. Now, that is an outrageous number, and globally, when you look at the list after, because that's where you start going down the rabbit hole. You start looking at the other countries and what the stats are and everything, and then you see this huge disparity between number one, United States, and everybody else afterwards. But also, I have to, do my due diligence, and I realize a lot of the kidnappings are not actually the kind of kidnappings we're talking about. They're, a mom and a dad have an argument. The dad grabs the kid from school and doesn't bring them to the mom or something. The mom calls in. It registers as a missing person, so it goes into the stats as that same issue as if somebody was kidnapped and trafficked, for example, where it's not the case. And then I found out a very high percentage of it is actually these family issues that turn into kidnappings and whatnot.
Yeah, we call
However,
it parent abduction.
yeah, so that's a huge number of the kidnappings apparently. Now, um, my question is, this being the case, when you're in that kind of a situation and you kind of suspect that kind of an issue, I see on social media and through just generally talking to people, it's a really big issue in the US, and it's a very expensive issue. So not a lot of people have the kind of funding to go and hire a lawyer to go to court. And I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. We're not talking $300 to do this process. So it's something that really only less than 1% of the population of the United States can even afford to follow up with. How do you go about resolving these kind of problems, these kind of kidnappings? Do you still go to the police and report it in the same way, or do you go somewhere else that can kind of accelerate the find? Is there another department that you say, hey, my ex-husband, for example, the father of the child, has again done this, and they automatically know the story or have the backstory and they go into it? Is
Sure.
there an expedited way?
Yeah, so those are very complicated cases, but yes, the very first thing they ought to do, a parent, if they suspect that the other parent has concealed their child from them or literally abducted them and fled the state and went somewhere else where they can't be detected or located, then you go to the police and you file a crime report as a kidnapping, and then they'll do the rest from there. But you also should consider and contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NECMEC, and
Okay,
you go
we'll
to their
we'll put that
website as
information
missing,
for people to see that.
yeah,
That's good information.
yeah, missingkids.org, because then they will help you be the national clearinghouse, if you will, to receive all that information. They would actually help you monitor the case, the investigation. They will create flyers for you, put them on social media, on their website, and we could use that to spread the word and quickly send them to the airports, send them to the
Train
uh,
stations.
the train stations, the international borders
Yeah,
for the border patrol and customs people, so that if they see something going or coming, so yeah, so it's a matter of getting the word out as quickly as possible because time is of the essence. The
right.
longer it takes, the harder it's going to be to find them. So if we could find them sooner, the better.
And this is
And
free.
yeah, and it's free. This
Right.
resource is free,
Yeah.
and it's very important. But again, you got to and then provide the most recent photographs you have.
Hmm.
And if you, it's sad to say this, but if you go to the National Center and Missing website, they have thousands of kids
I
listed
know.
on the website that are missing. And I was going over them the other day, and some have been missing for decades, 20
Mm,
years, 30 years, and that's really sad. And so what happens is the National Center has a special unit that creates flyers with the images of what they believe the child may look like now, years
mm.
later, based on their DNA profile of the family and based on the pictures that they do have. They create these images. And let me tell you, some of those images have been very spot on, and that has led to some recovery of some of the children. And sometimes it's a case of finding them in a different country. And so, yeah, and most recently, America's Most Wanted show has just relaunched, and they're doing amazing work trying to solve all these unsolved cases. And sometimes they do profile some very unique circumstances of missing individuals or kidnapped children. In fact, that's how Adam Wash got involved, because Adam Wash's son was kidnapped at a very young age and ultimately found murdered, and that was very, very sad. So it does happen, but not too common, thankfully, that children are kidnapped by strangers. But for the most part, as you well stated, when they're kidnapped, they're mostly kidnapped by somebody they know. It could be a parent, it could be a family member, it could be a friend, and that's where you have to educate your children.
And also that's the thing, I wanted to kind of speak about this here because you see this number and people are like, oh, people are getting kidnapped left, right, and center in the US, and I say, no, 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 the stat is right. It's a huge number daily, but the thing is, please take into consideration that the majority of this is just one parent um, thinking outside the box, so to speak, and saying, you know what, I'm just going to take my child and I'm going to move from LA to somewhere in Montana, and we're going to live happily ever after. And so they make this crazy decision to do that, right? But what I do love about the American public is they're vigilant. It's just in the nature of the American public to be vigilant. And so what happens is when you put the news out there, people call in. I mean, I've sometimes when you see these missing people stuff and the alerts that come out and everything like that. I've traveled to the U.S. often, and I sometimes I'm there and something happens, and I'm watching the situation, and then they say, oh, the person was found off highway such and such. The father had
Yeah,
abducted, and how did it happen? Somebody at a gas station. Noticed a child that looked similar and called it in, and then
sure.
3 blocks down they found them. The cops just zoned in on it and honed in on it and all of that. So putting the word out there is really important, and I can't emphasize it enough. Money plays a role in the real abduction situation. I mean, again, going back to Zoe's situation, and her mom kidnapped in Mexico. You need billboards, you need ads, you need flyers, you need a social media campaign, you need somebody to partner with you, so people can donate and people can keep that search going, and you need to afford people like yourself some budget so that you can really chase this down. Like Moses
Yeah,
needs to go down there, come back, chase leads.
yeah,
These are costly, right? I mean, I wish I could say, Moses, here's 50 grand, and just drop everything and go find Carmen, right? I mean, that's what
yeah,
it takes, right? I mean, but the sad part of it, the flip side of this, which really breaks my heart, is that what's money when it comes to life? I mean, it
yeah.
shouldn't.
You
It
can't put a
shouldn't.
price on it. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't put a price on that. So that's why I got
yeah.
involved. I got involved because I'm like, no,
Yeah,
no, no, Zoe, we're gonna raise the funding, and
right.
we're gonna make sure Moses and everybody else who's involved in this does whatever they need to do. They need to go down there, they need to sit here, they need to buy 2 extra computers, whatever it is they need to do. They can do that so that we can do everything we can. Because if one little thing here or there that a detective does, or that the police are able to do, or um, the whatever we're doing works, no money is negotiable in this case. For me, it's like, I don't
Right.
care how much it costs. I'll sell my house if I have to, because you know I can't put a price on that. I just can't. Some people
Yeah.
can, I can't.
Well, I've been very fortunate enough that I actually have not charged one dime to any of the families that I've been helping.
I
I do
know,
that
I've
pro
heard.
bono, and
Yes.
so yeah.
which is
So
which is why you're here. That was one of the things I wanted to say about you, is that when Yenny told me, Moses has been helping Zoe's case, and when we raise funding for her, and we've been helping her with that, it really helps them, push the thing forward, because they're not charging. All the funding goes towards the actual finding, essentially. So
Right.
it'll really help. I said, okay, you know what, let's speak with Moses too, because I feel like if people know more people like Moses in California and other states, then there's a chance that more people are found and more people are
Yeah, you know
saved.
what? And people are noticing. Believe it or not, I get phone calls or emails from different parts of the country asking them if I could help in their case. And it's very limited what I could do in another
Mm,
state, but what I still can do, I could still get the word out on social media. So at least at the very minimum, I do that.
right.
But yeah, it's really, really sad. But I do want to just say one thing about how some of these young females, young teenage girls, go missing because it continues to happen. And there's this phenomenon that's happening. A lot of these girls create these OnlyFan pages, right? And we know that OnlyFan pages are used to, they sell their nude pictures or videos, and they do all this stuff. And a lot of these pimps, they'll go on OnlyFans and look for these girls that are already out
Yes.
there doing this, and they'll
And take that
say,
extra step.
yeah, they'll say, hey, Maria, I see you're doing this, man. You're beautiful. You're very beautiful, and you're making a lot of money doing that. But guess what? I could make you uh, 30 times more, 50 times more of the money you're making doing the exact same thing. They go, really? Yeah. So then they take the bait, they take the hook, and yeah, it starts off that way. It's the exact same thing. They'll start them slowly, but once they have them there, and they give them a little taste of the money that's coming in, and then boom,
It's the
the
old
next one,
story
it's not
again.
just a photo shoot, it's not just a video shoot. Now you got to go meet Mr. John
Yes.
Doe over there and perform,
Yes.
and you better do it because if you don't, I'm going to tell your mom or your dad about all these naked pictures you have, and do
Or
you want
even
them to
worse,
know
I'm
about
going to
you?
go hurt them. Even worse, I'm
Right,
going to
or
go
hurt them
hurt them.
exactly.
Yeah. I'm going to shoot your
So
mom and dad if you don't. So that girl's sitting there thinking, "Oh my god, what have I got myself into? I better perform." And then that's the
yeah,
beginning of the worst thing that can
so
happen.
it's very important for parents to know this and to be really on top of this and have a open line of communication and what's happening on with your children's social media and internet stuff. And then also I want to say on the flip side, if you know someone that's caught up in that scenario, there is hope. We can find you resources and hope. And as a matter of fact, right now I'm working with a family who we're trying to rescue this individual from the, we call it here in Los Angeles, the Figueroa corridor. It's known as the human trafficking
Yes.
epicenter of the country for decades. Sadly to say that, but that's the truth. And now it's just a matter of us finding her. We already have people in place ready to help her and get her to what we call a safe home and get her back, to her family and get her to heal and thrive. And it's not going to be easy, but I do want to say that there is hope. There are
Hmm.
resources out there, that are really dedicated themselves to help victims that are being trafficked.
I used to work with an organization only in the capacity of funding, and what they used to do is they so they came to me and they told me, you know what, what's better than helping find missing girls is getting them before they go missing. So we look on these, these newspaper ads and online ads and OnlyFans and other spaces that they advertise, and so we find them, and we notice the ones that we know are being trafficked or whatever, because they have expertise into understanding how the placement is being made and all of that. So they say, if we go in and we're able to help them while we still have a connection, we're physically sitting with them in a room, we can help them. But when you go and fund a program where it's reactive as opposed to proactive, then it's more costly and it's less likely to be able to support the situation. Whereas if you go in proactive early on and say, hey, look, this girl here, she's in this situation, and we know she's working here right now. there's a better chance to help. So I thought, you're so right. Let's stop it. Let's prevent it, as opposed to
Right.
now either finding the body washing up on the river or something else, right? Even never
Oh
finding
yeah.
them at all.
I,
So
I strongly I strongly believe in that. If we prevent it from happening, it's even better. So one way to do that is at a very young age, maybe a middle school, have these assemblies at a school and explaining and maybe bring in a survivor or a victim that's been there and say, look, this is what happened to me. This is how it happened. I don't want it to happen to you. So learn from my situation and then let's prevent it. And
right.
because if you, that I think is the key. And it's the same thing with anything. That's how we prevent gangs, how we could prevent drug use.
Hmm.
If we start educating our young children at a very young age in hopes that the message is received here, and then they won't do it. And that's what happened in my case. I remember being a young kid, growing up in East LA. I remember, I literally thought to my mind, I have two options here: I either join a
Hmm.
gang or I don't. And so, and I had to go through that process, and I realized, no, I don't want to end up dead or in prison, so I'm not going to join a gang. But it's because of the message that I heard early on that this is what's going to happen if you do that. And same thing, if we have somebody give you the real life experience and tell you this is what happened to me, this is what I went through, nobody in their right mind is going to want to go through
Right.
that.
And,
Nobody.
and there are advocates, like, on the very famous scale, Danny Trejo.
Right.
He is the real life story of that. Change your life around, right? And be an advocate for that. But I really also think that, the important part of the education is to change the value system. So, um, like you said, at an early age, school, at home, everywhere, is to put in the children's hearts goodness and understanding of evil, in a sense. Because, when you are in that space to choose between gang or good, it's one thing to say, oh, if I enter the gang, the percentage of me ending up in jail or dead is high, the risk may not be worth it. But it's not a value system. It's just a game theory
Right.
situation where you're doing the math essentially, and you're like, but my uncle is the gang leader, so I may have a better chance, so I'm going to enter. So if you don't have the value system, you just do the odds and you enter or you
Right.
don't on the odds, which is something you
Right.
explained. I think if we go one step further and say, regardless of my father being the gang leader or not, what I should do is not be involved, because this is the wrong type of thing for the future of the entire society, my
Right.
community, my people, all those things. And let me find a way that I can improve my community, where I can improve East LA, right? So when people come out like you and they're improving East LA, and more kids see that, the way you saw that officer help you, which turned you into who you are, that value system is key. And, unfortunately, high profile cases, Jeff Epstein, he wasn't kidnapping girls off the street and they were never found. No, it was very easy. I mean, it was, hey, you want an extra $100? And to a 15-year-old or 14-year-old,
Yeah.
wow, $100, sure. And when your value system's really low, yeah, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I don't mind, because
Yeah.
the value system's not there, and I'm too young to understand the consequences of what I'm doing, and the consequences of essentially me being raped at that age. So you're very
Right.
right. Education is huge, and I wish we can always promote and advocate for that. Now, I think there should be a lot more of you in the world, because you're doing what you're doing for, and I'm not saying it because you're here. I really mean it, because you're doing what you're doing because you care about what you're doing, and that's what I mean about value system. That's value system. You're not doing it for the money. You know, a law firm, for example, will go out there and do their work, and they get paid. Now they may have their heart in it and do the best for their client or not, but there is a transaction. That transaction creates the work, and they do their job, for example. But then you have people like yourself who go in there and say, no, I care. I'm going to stand with you throughout the whole case. I'm going to put my time into it. Even when I go home and I'm about to go to bed, if there's a lead or something, I'm going to just stay on it, and be involved in it. I'm not thinking about money at all. I'm just doing it because this is the right thing to do. And I think that mentality is what we need a lot more of. And speaking of that, uh, what how can the communities in the world help you? People like ourselves here, Compassiviste, as a foundation, or other people, or people just looking to support. What can we do with you to help you navigate through all of this? You may say, hey, if I can have 3 people here helping me, I could quadruple the amount of help that I'm supporting people. Or you can say, if I can have a marketing team, I can push out so much more information. I don't know what it is that you need. If you
Right.
share with our audience, how can
Sure.
we help Moses?
Well, and thank you so much, Ali. I really appreciate your kind words. They mean a lot to me. And I will tell you this, that I'm actually in the process of creating a different website that's going to be detectivemosescastillo.com. And what I hope that website will be, again, it's going to be detectivemosescastillo.com. And what I hope it to be is going to be a resource center for people and families that are going through some very dark times, and they're going to see a list of resources and links and how to get a hold of me, and some advice on how to navigate with certain scenarios of they're missing, of or my son or daughter was murdered, and what do I do now? Talking about victims of crime application for victims of fund uh, um, for victims of crime funds, for resources, for counseling, for therapy, and it's going to be hopefully like a resource center, and then a way to get a hold of me. And if I could help you in a case, I'll do it. But if I can't help you, I'll try to find somebody that can, and we'll work from there. So, as you can imagine, I get emails or phone calls almost on a weekly basis about something or other, and so I'm going
Right.
to. So you could help me. Number one, I believe in the power of prayer. A very quick
Yes.
story. I remember one of the nicest compliments I ever got from a survivor of a sexual assault. She thanked me weeks later after her case became finalized, and she sent me a nice little card. And within it, she taped a little penny, and she went on to say that I was her angel, and uh, I really helped her, and she went on, and it was amazing, very powerful. But she said that she's going to continue to pray for me so that God will continue to give me the strength to move on.
Mm.
And she said, that's a Moses penny. And whenever I see a penny on the ground, she said, that's going to be my Moses penny. And I'm going to pick it up, and it's going to remind me to say a prayer for you. And that was really sweet. It really touched my heart that she do that. And guess what? Now every time I see a penny on the ground, it's a Moses penny, and it reminds me of that victim, that
And now it'll
survivor.
remind everybody of this story. And now
Yeah,
everybody who sees a penny is going to
yeah.
say, Moses, God bless
So I
you.
so pray for, and that's actually how I do how I get along with life, and I'm able to move on because I every Sunday morning when I go to church, I have this custom where I ask God, there's this time of worship in our church service, and I ask God, please heal my mind, my heart, because it's the pain's real. That's one
Yes.
thing that sets us apart here is we allow ourselves to feel our victims, our clients' pain,
Compassion.
and that gives us a greater resolve to fight for them and get justice and whatever that may look like. And so I ask God, clean my heart, my mind, because all the junk I've seen throughout my career.
Mm.
And I also ask God, and I pray for my victims. I pray for the victims that I've helped in the past. I pray for the victims that I'm currently helping now. And just as important, I pray for the victims that are coming in the future. And every time I meet a victim and I say, you know what, I've been praying for you, and this is I explain to them how it comes to be, and you can see that I could tell that that's sometimes a very powerful moment for them where they feel connected, and then they start to cry. They say, yeah, I, I've been praying for a miracle. I've been praying for an angel, and God sent me you. And I got to tell you, sometimes that's a huge burden for me to carry because sometimes, sometimes I'm their only hope, or they see me, I'm their only hope, and
Right.
that's a huge burden to carry. And
Yes.
but
And you feel
I'm very
responsible, right?
grateful.
You feel
Yeah,
responsible. I mean, that's exactly how I felt with Zoe. Bringing that story back up, I was sitting there and thinking, ugh, now I know. Before I didn't know. Now I know. And when I know, for me to say, well, I hope you find your mom. Have a nice life. Bye. is just impossible. I can't sleep that
Yeah,
night.
you can.
So no, I gotta be involved. Now, if I can't do anything in my involvement, I still feel better because I'm trying, right? And and
Right.
and the thing people need to understand is that nobody expects you to get involved and be, a superhero. People expect
Right.
you to get involved, bring your best, and I think the collective of people who are bringing their best creates a superhero effect.
Yeah.
That's the way resolution happens, right? So here I
Right.
am trying to help her how I can. Here you are trying to help her how you can. Here's all these people trying to help her in the different mediums that they can. Eventually, we're all hoping for the same thing. And if it happens, then each of us can feel the weight of that blessing, right? In
Yeah.
in, in the way that it happened.
Absolutely. So yeah, so I want to thank you again for this opportunity. It's been an honor to be able to share this insights and these stories, and I'm hoping that that will actually motivate you or inspire you, listener or viewer, whatever the case may be. We all have a gift in ourselves. I believe that. And sometimes our gifts are wrapped up with more tape than others, but it's up to us to find someone to help us unwrap our gift so that we could use it to be a blessing to others, to be that light for someone that's going through a very dark time. And as I say that, light goes out. How about that?
I
And the light
know,
comes back on
I
because we're
know.
going to continue to fight the good fight. We're not going to give up, and that's what it's going to take. We're living in some very challenging times where up is down and down is up, and right is wrong and wrong is right, and
Yes.
our whole society is all screwed up. And when things come on, and so West we need some really good people, and I challenge you to get involved, become a police officer because we need good police officers. Get involved in your community, vote the right people in, get involved
Yes.
and go to your local school board meetings, go to your local community meetings, know what's happening, get involved, and trust me, because if we all have that same approach and that same attitude,
Hmm.
then we can make our communities better and safer for
Hmm.
all of us. Because we can't just do it one at a time by ourselves, but collectively we could do a lot. So that's
Exactly.
that's the message. Is that
The
I
collective.
hope that we could inspire you to get involved. And if you want to learn how to get involved, reach out to me. I'm sure we'll put my
Yeah,
my
we'll
information
put
somewhere
all
in the
your
link here, and
information down there.
we'll do it.
And honestly, amen to that, because that's a prayer. The collective involvement, and to make people understand, to be a part of that. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share the stories and your story here. And we do this often. We bring people who are doing God's work. That's what I call it. Whatever you want to call it. You can call it the universe, you can call it nature, whatever you want to call it, but I call it God's work because this is the goodness in our humanity. You're doing the goodness in humanity, and I really applaud that. That's what I'm trying
Thank
to
you,
do.
Ollie.
I'm trying to connect myself with so many people who are, the people who are doing God's work. So maybe through that connection, we can be a part of that and help. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to say this on the show for the first time, I'm going to support what you're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to link Compassiviste Foundation with you, and so that we can raise some funding and provide you with the funding that your most desperate and vulnerable clients, so to speak, the people you help, need, who can't. And this way, maybe we bring a balance to some of the people who money makes a difference in their case. So we're going to set that up. The people listening and watching, please go on the website, don't go on Moses's website first. That's imperative, because that's where I want you guys to see what's going on and be involved with it. When everything's set up, he will have a link to us. You can always check our website as well, compassivistfoundation.org, and look at the link that takes you to Moses, and the other programs. But essentially, yeah, we need to be involved in this. We need to be involved with you
Thank you.
so you can do better work. So we're definitely going to do that, and we're going to support, and we're going to have your website and your socials and all your information. What is your social media handle?
Well, the primary one where people can reach me is at Detective Moses Castillo on Instagram. So it's at
Okay.
Detective Moses Castillo on Instagram. I'm also Moses Castillo, the number 10 on TikTok. Those are the two
Okay.
primary
So
that
we'll
I
put
use.
those down, your website, everything, and we will connect with you and create a program where we can, raise funding, raise donations for you to be able to basically, dip into that jar and help people. I mean, that's what it's for. We pass the hat around, we collect funding so that we can give that funding to the places that need it, that drives the momentum for. So we're definitely going to do
Well,
that
thank you
with
for
you.
that. I really appreciate it.
Moses, you
Thank
are
you.
an angel, like one of your the people you saved said so. And thank you for being here. I encourage everybody to visit his social media. Keep in touch. You never know, you might see a face there that you can save. So if it
Right.
even takes you 2 minutes of your day, go there, take a look, see what's going on. Visit the website, subscribe here so we can bring you people like Moses that you can be involved in. So like Moses says, and like I always say, we need to build that momentum so the collective can make the difference. So through this channel, through the rest of our spaces, our websites, let's build the collective so that we can help each other. So follow us, follow Moses, and let's try to save lives together. We're here to change the world together. I'm Ali Horia. Thank you very much.